We are heading now to the last part of the lecture. So far we have seen what are the main applications of sensor fusion in the eHealth field and how it's possible to achieve such application through the sensor integration system. Now, on the last part, I would like to focus on what are the main requirements and challenges for the next future. So in this slide you see the requirement, and I think that we can summarize all the requirements in 4 main points: power consumption, security, automatization, and simplicity. So on the power consumption, I think that what we have to underline, first of all, is the fact that in the eHealth field, we are dealing usually with decentralized structure. So the sensor fusion happens usually on the device itself or in a tier 2 level. So the device itself can be, for example, a smartwatch, or the tier 2 level device can be a smartphone. In whatever is the case, the more sensor we are going to integrate, the more complexity of the algorithm is expected to increase. And the complexity is usually connected to computation demand, and so a more energy required. And if we want this technology to be applicable in the real world, this kind of cost has to be taken into account, has to be minimized. The second point is, of course, security. And I think that this is explainable by itself. eHealth data are probably the most sensible data that a person can have and can generate. For this reason, high data security and integrity is not just additional feature, but is a fundamental asset to consider when we project our algorithm and the platforms. The last 2 points are more related to a kind of common sense and practical aspect of the application of sensor fusion in the eHealth. So, first of all, our algorithm has to be automatized. We are dealing here with potentially a large amount of data generated every second. So what we have to do is minimizing the human intervention. We can't rely on the human intervention for the data processing, actually. As I said, the 4th point is quite correlated to the 3rd one, and we can summarize it in one word: simplicity. Basically, your system has to be as simple as possible and as targeted for the specific kind of scenario you're going to deal with. Monitoring a sports athlete is completely different and has completely different requirement to monitoring, for example, a person in her or his daily living. And you have to take into account this, because the golden rule in this case is the fewer sensor, the better. So try to design your system, your algorithm, to use as less sensor as possible, because this makes the difference between a real applicable work and mere speculation and a proof of concept in an academic paper. In few words, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, like Leonardo da Vinci used to say. Let's talk now about the challenges. I think that realize the goal that we have talked about in the previous slide. There are 3 main challenges that we have to solve as, I would say, technological community in the next future. So the first challenge is standardization. Nowadays, due to this kind of long stack we have talked in this slide, there is not a clear pipeline that bring our data, raw data, from the sensor to the user, basically, so the care provider. Standardization is necessary because, as we see here, most of the time the subjects are different, and if we want a really pervasive system that can have an impact on our society, we need a standardization to make all these sensors produced by many manufacturers, which has different firmware, different API, make all these sensors communicating with the sensor integrators. And also, there is, as we have seen here, there is a problem of how we can make communication between different sensor integrators. So this is why I put here the eHealth paper, which is a kind of protocol that try to solve this problem, to try to propose a kind of standardization in this respect. Standardization is actually really connected to raw data availability, so the second point. Sensor manufacturers, for what I've seen in my experience, are not so keen in sharing raw data of the sensor with the rest of the world. This is quite understandable. This is actually what their sensor is taught to, and this is the deliverable of what they produced. For this reason, sometimes we have to deal with algorithm that has to not to take into account the possibility of having raw data available. So this is the reason why I put a lot of effort here in explaining how Bayesian network works, because to have a really impact on the task, they usually require raw data. But if in a paper, in a theoretical project, those are usually available, that is not the reality in many of the cases of real world. So the third point here is specifically about wearable sensor. As you see through my course, wearable sensors are actually the key enabler of sensor fusion revolution in the eHealth. Nonetheless, we have to remember that such sensors are mostly user dependent. In few words, those sensors and their efficiency depend on the way the user wear them. And if you think this weakness can be a really big obstacle in the future for the real application of sensor fusion platform and eHealth platform in the real world as a meaningful supporting tool for patient monitoring and diagnostic. And you can think how much problematic could be to have an approval for a pharmaceutical agency such as FDA if there is such a dependency between your algorithm, your technology, on the user itself, which is by definition not controllable. For this reason, I think that in a broad sense, development of sensor fusion has to be thought as a sort of combination between wearable sensor and a non-wearable sensor, using, for example, technology such as environmental sensor or Wi-Fi based health and breath monitoring. As last slide, I would like to go on the future development of sensor fusion in eHealth. As a premise, these are personal opinions and view, so don't take them too seriously, but I think that what I'm going to say here is quite well founded, and I think that at least a part of my forecasting will be the case in the next future. So first of all, what are the technological development? I think combining sensor fusion and deep learning is the first one. As I said, I am a machine learning engineer and a sensor fusion as well. So I think that this is a good example of how these two disciplines can be integrated. There are basically two main ways in which they can be integrated. The first one is using neural network to do sensor fusion, and I think this is would be the case, at least in the near term, using a deep learning as a way to feed, in some sense, our sensor fusion algorithm. So to provide, for example, more accurate features that can be used by sensor fusion in a practical case. More in deep, I would say that Bayesian network will gain momentum in the near future. This is due to the fact that the drawback of Bayesian network is their complexity and the high requirement of data. Bayesian network can be included in what we call data-driven algorithm, can be seen actually as in that blurred area between sensor fusion and deep learning and machine learning. So this problem will probably be lack of data, will probably be filled in the next future with a higher and higher data availability. So especially for patient monitoring, I think that Bayesian network will be really the technological tool to use and to study. What about the practical? So I think that probably a new standard would be released once, of course, the market will progress and will be in a certain stage that, as we said, there is some key players in the market now. We have Apple, we have Google, and other kind of minor companies. But I think that in the next 4 years, realization of a standard to make all these sensors to exchange raw data and feature will be released. So about the development of a sensor integration system, I think that targeting is definitely a good idea. So I've seen nowadays some solution in the market where they provide sensor integration system which are basically able to do everything. No, I don't think that this is the case. I think that we have really to understand, first of all, the application field we are dealing with. So the reason why I specified those three application fields, like sport monitoring, smart assisted living, and stuff like this, is because the real life solution is not the best algorithmic solution, is the solution that is more applicable, more simple, more applicable to a real life context. If we have to monitor an old person 24 hours per day, is completely different to monitor a sportsman for a really short amount of time. That could be trivial, but believe me, most of the studies done in this field nowadays don't take into account this targeted context. And actually, I can say for experience that most of them cannot be applied. For this reason, most of this system have no future. So targetization is absolutely important. So this slide is the last of this course. I really hope that you enjoy it and you could have appreciate how much effort has been put to draw up a kind of state-of-the-art of sensor fusion, especially focus on eHealth technologies. And also I really hope that I've been able to maintain the goals that have been declared on the first lecture. As I said in the introduction, the goal of this course was to fill in the gap between the existing technology, the existing scientific literature, and the real-world application that can be applied in a real and scalable business. I don't know if the expectation will be completely fulfilled, but I like to think that at least this course could be a first step inspiring a new generation of innovators and inventors in the realization in the practical realization of the eHealth paradigm we talk about many times in this lecture. As a final reminder, I would like to point out that if anyone find any error or mistake in the lecture, you're more than welcome to write me to the mail that could appear here on my channel, and all the slides will be published on my personal website, and the link is on the comments of the video, and you can find it in the playlist of the channel. And of course, as a final reminder, I will be really pleased if you can subscribe to my channel, put a like, comment it. It will really help me in my activity of content producer for free education. Again, this course has been totally self-financed and is totally free for everyone. So I really hope that you can appreciate how much effort has been put on it. As a final statement, I can tell you that this course will not be the last one. Probably there will be a new course released in 2023 about AI applied in health and the machine learning techniques that can be used for signal processing and especially health-related data. With this final statement, I think that I would really like to thank you if you have attended and followed all the lectures of this course, or actually a part of them. And hopefully we will see each other again in the future, always trying to understand how the technology can help us in the realization of a better future.